Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. DUANE the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would be witness to the presence of a vast planet Earth-based city of a kind, though one stationed high in the atmosphere as opposed to on the ground, placed at such an elevation that it would in actuality be positioned within the topmost layers of the sky. That although this was a real side view, impressions revealed this vast city was present on the physical level at this current moment, rather than say a possible future view situation with effects that are yet to be experienced physical level wise, etc. Due to the immensity of the overall size of this city, as it in actuality would encompass a large area of the skies above the various continents of the earth, despite its position of elevation, it would likely have been perceivable from the ground, if not by the naked eye, then surely through a technological means of magnification, telescopes, binoculars, and such alike. The city, however, boasted levels of technology not excessively advanced in relation to that which features in the current human experience. The technologies that the slaves are allowed access to and operate at any rate, but enough that were a comparison drawn between the two, one would assume that perhaps decades of so-called time separated them. The level of technology the Sky City operated with allowed a means by which it was rendered imperceptible to any mechanism of observation, as though it were either camouflaged in some way, or perhaps operating at a frequency within the range that is the physical level, but within certain bands of it that made it undetectable. For indeed the human senses have been purposely diminished in their ability to decode and experience the full range of a frequency that is the physical level, and very likely in addition are the technologies the human slaves are provided unable to determine the full extent of the physical level dimension, and so much can be taking place physical level wise, though beyond the ability of the human or their technologies to detect. which affords the ability of the dark force controllers to be operating physical level but unseen, as though an additional dimension was incorporated into the physical that the humans are unable to access and interact with, maintaining as invisible to any means of a technological observation or the naked eye the design of this vast sky city comprised of interlocking platforms, their elevated positions perpetuated through the application of the advanced technology the city boasted, and upon these platforms would the city reside. Overall, it was a dark force creation, the reptilian controllers harnessing far greater levels of technology than the slave species they subjugate, and only allowing certain of it to feature in the human experience where it suits their controlling agendas to make such available, and they had brought their considerable technological prowess to bear, that this city had been constructed, one slightly out of phase with the range of the physical level dimension that humans and their provided technologies could perceive. It was then a military city of a kind, affording accommodation to those operating within it. Among the various soldier types present would be individuals of a more scientific persuasion, all manner of technology being utilized and in development, and whatever roles, positions, and functions were required to facilitate the ability of the city to operate. Predominantly, those present throughout the city would be human, as far as appearances could tell, but more likely humans that were involved with the more clandestine secret space program orientated military operations that this city was a part of. As I mentioned earlier, that the dark force controllers have manipulated the human body form as effected from a consciousness, that it can only perceive and experience a certain proportion of the actual physical level dimension it operates within, and the provided technologies likewise are unable to detect and measure the entirety of the physical also, so this allows the ability of the controllers to have such constructions in operation, and where not only can they be utilized for the purposes of a covert technological development, but potentially as mechanisms of destruction. For I have been chronicling over the years the various potentialities that may befall humanity. The dark force controllers have set their intent now with depopulation of the human species, and as everything a species experiences is dependent on the idea agreements being installed in their collective consciousness, so through various means and mechanisms, generally technological and subliminally, have the controllers been installing all manner of variations along the apocalyptic, cataclysmic idea lines into human overall consciousness. For it is so that every idea of a consciousness is in effect now in actuality, but through the design of a consciousness as it effects the physical level experience, through the inclusion of a time and space ideas. An idea isn't its immediate effect, but must process through a series of stages to conclusion, and only certain of the ideas that consciousness comprises of will be processing through to physical level culmination at any given moment, the ideas that are held in attached to a prominence over all others. The equivalent of selecting a certain movie from the collection, though every movie complete on their respective DVD discs in reality, and only if the chosen, completed movie is watched to a conclusion will the effect be experienced, physical level speaking. Should the movie be exchanged for another part way through, that another idea take prominence, replacing that which was held to previously, a new effect will begin to be processed to its conclusion. An idea then must be held to long enough for it to reach its effect and be physical level actualized, and to maximize the chances of the dark forces having their apocalyptic depopulation human scenario come to pass. So they are cramming as many ideas of this nature into human consciousness as possible, that one of their dastardly idea creations will be retained to a conclusion. This Sky City then, although for clandestine technological and innovative development, was designed for this purpose also, as a viable mechanism of bringing about cataclysmic global upheavals. Conceivable is it then that this vast, imperceptible, though potentially still very much Earth-impacting city may have played a part in regards to weather manipulation over the years, weather warfare as it is referenced commonly as, in conjunction with the various other technologies utilized for such, HARP and so forth. It wasn't revealed as to what duration of a time the city had been present in the skies, but it rather reminded me of the concept put forward in the 80s, that of the proposed construction of what was termed the Star Wars project, the ability to nullify any missile as launched from the Earth's surface, marketed as a means of ensuring the safety of humanity, but in reality likely to be utilized for quite the opposite. Officially, the project was scrapped, but very likely it is in operation in some capacity. For indeed, not only was the military Sky City now to be a means of a planetary cataclysmic upheaval, but up until this point, very likely utilized for all manner of extreme weather instigation, as I mentioned. It also served as a vast surveillance platform for the effective means of monitoring every human slave that walks the globe. That all of humanity are tracked and monitored is a given via the cell phones, the satellites, and indeed the hollowed out space station that is the moon, but this vast Sky City also then would be a part of the overall surveillance of every enslaved human. As I said, the dark forces now were intending to bring the technologies the Sky City boasted to bear destructively. Its positioning high in the atmosphere and covering much of the land masses and continents of the Earth afforded it a strategic military advantage with such an objective, an operation that would involve the unleashing of powerful missiles impacting across the Earth. That although the city was out of a physical, perceptual range, technically operating in another dimension, the rockets they released would phase into the frequency range that was the human experience, and thus be able to wreak their destruction. For as destructive as a simulation effected idea can be, it can only be impacting to that which is in frequency conjunction with it. Exploding a bomb on, say, the astral level will be unable to impact body forms that operate on the physical. The Sky City would not only be imperceptible, but completely out of phase with the physical level human experience. Effectively then, one could fly a plane straight through it and encounter no resistance, etc. The missiles, as I said, would be phased into the frequency range that is the physical level human experience, and it would seem as though their source were indeterminable, as though manifesting out of the ethos, and then proceeding to impact their designated targets. That even if the missiles do not bring about the level of a global cataclysm and depopulation, if not outright genocide of humanity as desired, easy will it be for this to be a catalyst for a World War III scenario, as the dark force controllers puppeteer every government and military therefore of the planet. The actual source of the missiles will be realized, at least for those in the governmental controlling positions, high enough that they are privy to such information, but as it plays out into the public arena, so the facade will be that of the governments of the world in apparent bewilderment as to the missiles' origins, or that blame will be laid at the door of certain countries as a justification for launching a war against them, such as the supposed war on terror in the aftermath of the instigated 9/11 event that justified the invasion of the countries of the Middle East, etc., and likely then that the launching and hitting of certain targets globally will be the catalyst for a contrived and coordinated World War III scenario, ensuring that the controllers have their depopulation event, and in the aftermath either rebuild the world in a more restricted, controlled design, or perhaps they may decide for a complete human genocide event. I had been witnessing all this from a real awareness aside from the simulation position, and observing now a selection of very sinister and ominously large missiles being trundled into a position within the military areas of the Sky City in preparation for their launching. How imminent this situation was would not be revealed, though an idea being processed through to effect now. As I mentioned, this was a physical level occurrence taking place now, the Sky City present, and had been so for who knows what duration of a time. But indeed, everything that is a physical level simulated will be as ideas that are consciousness placed, ideas that are multi-dimensional and accessible on the real side. And for this particular scenario, that of a global cataclysm to take place, these will be as ideas already in effect now, though as yet to process through to the physical level, if indeed they are held to long enough to be physical level actualized. In essence, then, we have a certain time window, so to speak, where we can attempt to disrupt the ideas or remove them prior to they affecting physical level-wise. We can nip them in the bud, so to speak. In reality, as everything experienced individually and species collectively is based on agreement, we can realistically do nothing other than attempt to steer dastardly agreement in an alternative direction. Ideas that are destructive by their nature can also be nullified. We can be the delivery mechanism for their implosion. Ideas that are managed in such a way, prior to the destruction they would have wrought, and where they would have eventually self-imploded anyway, as everything reflects and equals itself. We can shut down destructive dark force creations on the real side, prior to they being affected physical level-wise, and redirect agreement with those involved in addition. For this would now be my decided operation. No longer would I remain in an observing capacity, but be inserted into the simulation of the Sky City in an effort to make alterations to the progression of the ideas in relation to it, that although the city would remain as it already was a physical level manifested, its utilizing as a mechanism of World War III instigation could possibly be averted. The simulation, then, of my effort in idea averting would present as follows. I would operate in an infiltrating capacity initially, and successfully rally a number of assorted scientists and military types in residence within the city to my cause, representing then a reordering of the agreement, effecting the potential physical level scenario as I outlined. I had managed to secure the assistance of certain key-placed individuals that had the ability to sabotage the ill-intended operation, the missile launching, and the necessity of phasing them into a frequency conjunction with the physical level Earth experience, an operation dependent then on the application of advanced technology which could be subject to disruption. Our objective would continue for quite the duration, our ensuring the inability of the Dark Force missile operation to be executed through our sabotaging efforts, preventing effectively what were ideas in addition to the Sky City's already established physical level presence, that of the missile launching, from being made physical level manifest also. Ultimately, we would be exposed and discovered, and there would be a moment where we were engaged in a tremendous firefight, although the weaponry being used by both sides, the military of the city and our group, would resemble more so laser blasters than standard military firearms. Such was the general level of technological sophistication being employed within the Sky City overall, that a number of my group of defectors were of the military allowed our access to the same weaponry as utilized by the military loyal to the city and its destructive intentionality. There would be several moments where I was hit by laser fire, and the sensation of the flow of blood from my stomach region, as though more the expectation of the effect of such than the reality, as I would be unharmed. In essence, with projectiles being symbolic of ideas on the real side, as this entire simulated situation was of the redistribution of idea agreements to ensure the physical level-based Sky City didn't enter its destruction of Earth phase, the exchange of laser fire could be construed as ideas being projected, and should they hit the target and cause a damage, this reveals not only that the idea was agreed to, but that the nature of the idea was not especially beneficial. That I took hits but was unharmed would suggest then whatever ideas as generated by the Dark Force representing military I was not accepting of or in agreement with. Where then the opposing Sky City military were unable to eliminate my group or myself, but that we were able to successfully dispatch them with our laser fire, revealed the more beneficial orientated ideas then, as projected by the group and myself, were taking root and establishing themselves. As we nullified the military threat, the group of defector military and scientists would proceed onwards to secure certain other areas of the Sky City as a further measure of prevention where the missile launch was concerned. I would be assigned the task now of protecting the homes. again more symbolic than literal, that as a consciousness can be represented by the recreated physical level homes, that it is the ideas of consciousness that effect all simulated experience, given that this entire operation was as a restructuring essentially of the ideas that were the foundation of a physical level manifestation regarding the Sky City in relation to the earth and humanity, guarding of the homes was more in representation of the securing of the idea redistribution we had achieved, that of maintaining the consciousness as it now stood of all involved, that our nullifying of the Sky City that was mobilizing now as a destructive mechanism would be retained, and there the experience would end. The dark forces still adamant in the utilizing of their Sky City as a missile launching global cataclysm instigating means, but the group of defectors and myself presenting as a permanent break, so to speak, ensuring the idea agreements that effect such a dastardly physical level scenario are managed and maintained as nullified, that such an event is less likely to come to pass. I say less likely, as nothing can be assured in creation with its cause and effect agreement-based design, where ultimately what transpires individually and collectively for entire species is according to what they decide.